Welcome to the Love, Sex and Freedom podcast. This is where you're going to discover how to bring awakening into the body and into everyday life through powerful tantric teachings. Get ready to release, open and step into your true power.
So Chantelle and I are really excited to have you all here along for this 1 hour journey that's going to be, it's going to be a journey. And really to get here and with everything that Chantelle's going to be sharing, with everything that the Academy is holding, with the content of today's masterclass, there's been a very deep journey that Chantelle and I have gone personally with our own relationship with work and our own relationship with ease and nervous system regulation and having that balance between the doing and the being. And then, of course, together in business and running the Academy. So lots to share.
Thank you. And I want to introduce Tara, who came along and changed everything in my life. I'm a very fluid being when it comes to what my soul wants to bring to the world. And she came in and said, all right, let's bring some structure into this fluidity and extend everything that you have to offer into a broader reach. So thank you for making this possible, Tara. Thank you to everyone who has supported that process and who's here today. So the inspiration for this offering really dropped in from a place of, wow, like I'm finally at the place of a consistent feeling in my body of safety and ease, personally and in my business. And really, I remember the moment very clearly where I had this download, and initially it was called Open. And I just felt so open, and I felt this energy kind of coming over me of, fuck, there's nowhere else to go. There's actually nowhere else to go. There's no more trying. There's no more pushing. There is a space within me that is authentically just radiating. And of course, I'm human and that doesn't stay with me all the time. But a lot of my inspirations come from moments of feeling that sense of essentially, I am love. And I think the journey of the soul, if we're truly on a journey, is always back to that place. You know, it's always tempting to show up as stress, to show up as hurt, to show up as rage, to show up as some kind of reaction to our external environment and the external world, and the conditioning of the external world can be extremely seductive, seducing us into joining the mortgage line, seducing us into pushing, striving, trying, getting validation, all of these things that, you know, we know is not what brings us safety, but it's so difficult not to buy into that. And I think that the soul is most inspired by what's missing. And for me and my personal journey, what was missing was a deep safety to be in my body, you know, like a lot of us. And the way that I found safety was in books and in study, which, you know, I always say is very lucky for all of you, because I, as a result of that, I've studied everything you can possibly imagine in an attempt to understand this human existence. I always felt quite confused. You know, I had this nervous system that was often on edge as a child because of ongoing sexual trauma I was experiencing for several years. And bless my mother, she did the most beautiful job she could, but she was very manic and I never knew when she was going to blow. So I had a hyper alert nervous system, and it definitely wasn't safe for me to be in my body, you know. And the way that I protected myself from being here was through this seeking and understanding of, I guess, why are humans so fucked up? Why isn't it safe for me to be here? And that expanded the more that I was out in the real world, I guess. You know, my dad is an esoteric master and a beautiful man who taught me to meditate from a very early age, who connected me to spirit from a very early age. So I had these opposing forces of, wow, humanity is a really difficult place, but spirit is a beautiful place. And if I can be connected to spirit, then this human experience is okay, because all it's about is radiating love, extending love. But I didn't know that extending love wasn't meant to come from a place of, I should do this. And I guess I was entrained from a very early age to be in a space of what would love do now, including with trauma and with, you know, difficult moments with my mother. So I was like, how can I do this? How can I always come from love? I pedestaled my dad. He was such an amazing, beautiful light who was always giving love so freely, who actually was my safe place in the darkness and in the isolation of the mining of questioning and seeking. And it was all very confusing. And so I studied psychology, I studied somatic experiencing, I studied philosophy, I did a law degree in the attempts of like supporting justice in the world. I did a certificate for in anthroposophy. I studied trauma therapy. I really just wanted to understand. And then when I found Tantra, that was really the turning point for me, because I started to understand that actually, to be able to relate out in the world and feel safe in that, I actually needed to know myself better. And I needed to attune to myself more. And I needed to stop denying my human experience. And so much of spirituality, and so much of the spirituality I was exposed to, and the therapeutic models, was up here. And, you know, like, how can you always be relaxed? How can you always be in parasympathetic? Learning about regulating my nervous system, but not learning that actually activation and sympathetic, which I'm going to talk about more, can be really healthy, can be really beautiful. And then there's this other side of like all the beauty that I got out of meditation and personal development, where, you know, if you have your mental state clear and you're telling yourself the right things and meditating and you're opening and manifesting. But there was this part of me when I found Tantra that finally the deeper eros of my humanity, the deeper feeling, the rage, and actually the rage, you know, the word courage has the word rage in it. And I also remember the moment where I finally just let myself go, oh, I'm fucking sick of being human. What the fuck is this all about? And I don't want all of this pain that's in me. This shouldn't have fucking happened to me. And I want to fucking hate my perpetrator. I want to hate my mother. I want to hate my first boyfriend who cheated on me. I don't want to fucking transcend. And that rage, that feeling of finally allowing my energetic womb, I'd lost my womb to cancer, which is what brought me into Tantra. Finally acknowledging this feminine, energetic organ portal in my body that was absolutely fucking enraged and trembling and just saying, no, I do not fucking want this anymore. What else is there? And so began a journey of me polarizing into the lower chakras. of really exploring what it's like to follow my wildness. I had two beautiful children, one who's here and I can see her, and every time I look at that cute face, my heart's just bursting. But yeah, I had two children. I was only 25 when I had Sadell, my first, and there was this deep urge in me to travel, to go to lots of retreats with ISTA that I later became a facilitator for, the International School of Temple Arts. And all of a sudden, I wasn't in isolation in my seeking. And part of why I love creating spaces and why Tara loves creating spaces with the Living Tantra Retreat, with our practitioner training that's on right now, where people are diving deep, is that there is a community field of people who are saying no to something that doesn't feel meaningful and saying yes to the deep mining of their heart, of their soul, of actually finding some completion with what's missing, and then often becoming a bastion of light for others. And really, this is where mine and Tara's greatest passion lies, is being able to be that. And our journey together has had a very similar flavor, though different. You know, she'd been seeking for 10 years on and off in India and really going to the heights with mantra and service work. And when we came together and, you know, she first entered my field, she was so grateful that something had come along in the same way I was, that could merge, create union between the dark and the light, between the lower and the higher. And this is really what we bring forth. And one of the places that we always go to together is what happens when love is always at the center. What happens when love is the most important thread that's weaving everything. And the biggest barrier to love, for me, ironically, was my obsession with being the savior and my obsession with supporting others and caretaking. And how our practitioner training was birthed was I'd hit a point of exhaustion, and Tara said to me, you know, you need to train others to do this. You can't just, you can't keep doing it alone. And often what I would say to her is, I don't trust anyone else with, you know, I found in a lot of the Tantra worlds, there wasn't enough safety. And then I found in a lot of the therapeutic settings that I'd been exposed to, that there wasn't enough life and addressing of the darkness, right? So she's like, okay, well, why don't you teach people everything you know? And it was a very daunting task. And really, it brought me to my knees into my biggest wounding, which was the caretaker wound, and how much I identified with giving. And, you know, in that time, to go back to what I was saying, when I had young children, I was being called into all of these retreats and into the deep mining of my body and my womb and my eros and my emotions. I had to be apart from the kids at different times. And I had to be selfish. And it was like I was finding that part of me until I created my own school and came back to the center of like, okay, what happens when the heights and the depths merge? And what happened was the Embodied Awakening Academy. And in the creation of the practitioner training, I've had to release anything in me that can't show up as love. And the caretaker, and anyone who identifies with that, which is probably a lot of people, if you've read The Land, who identifies with the caretaker, right, is such a kind of, it's this place of like, can be victim energy. It's like, oh, you know, I need to hold it all. I'm always giving, I'm always extending, and different versions of that. And I just got sick of my own fucking story. I'm like, okay, where does this come from? And it was really that my self-worth was tied in with being a caretaker. And the most praise that I received as a child was, well done for being the bigger person. Well done for loving when it was really difficult to love. And what I've realized about love is that when you're embodying love, you're loving yourself as well as others. It's like you're going through this internal process of releasing whatever isn't love. And that's an inward journey, but then you're able to relate to the world with so much more love, because rather than coming from this place of extending love as a way of disconnecting from your own body and as a way of seeking or validating your own self-worth, actually it's this energy that you're radiating and overflowing. So the caretaker wound and the self-worth wound are inextricably connected. And where it leads you to is, are you willing to dissolve your identity? Are you willing to dissolve your conditioning? Are you willing to dissolve the conditioning on the planet? And whatever you were most praised for, whatever was celebrated in your household, you know, the other thing that was really celebrated in my household was doing a lot, you know, like, come on, let's go, let's do this, let's do that, let's get action happening. There wasn't praise for deep rest. There wasn't praise for deep nourishment. My role models were always bringing a lot, extending a lot of energy. And, you know, like a lot of our mums and dads, there wasn't happiness between them. There wasn't an ease, there wasn't a joy, but I didn't really question that until later in life. And then I started questioning that. And I realized that actually, if you don't know how to nourish yourself, if you don't know how to attune to yourself, if you're always trying to be the light, be the savior, you end up how my dad has ended up now, which is one of my biggest heartbreaks in life, which is siphoned of life in a way. It's like life has been extracted from him, from all of the overgiving. And actually, when I saw that happening, that really woke me up. That was like, are you going to follow this path? And so if everyone can just close their eyes for a moment. And what is your biggest heartbreak? What is the place in your conditioning, in your upbringing, that left you feeling alone, that left you feeling unsafe? What was missing? Because whatever was missing is what's going to create wholeness. And I'm here to support you in what was missing for me, but we're all unique, and everything I'm saying here today apply to your own unique soul journey. And just tuning in now, what was your conditioning? Were you conditioned to be passive? And just kind of be in the floating like a feather in the wind of emotion and confusion, overwhelming? Were you conditioned in the hustle, in the doing, in the pushing, in the trying, in the money means everything and we've got to make more and you've got to work hard and money doesn't fall off trees? Or were you conditioned into money is bad? Just for a moment, I want you to contemplate what has been your personal conditioning as a reference point for how you live life, of how you express into the world. What were you praised for? What were you criticized for? What were you shamed for? Was it not okay to be selfish, to tune into you first? What is hard about being in this body, in this human experience? What is difficult about that, and how have you survived that? And just bring one hand to your heart, one hand to your womb. And just let yourself know right now that there is something else. There's something else available to your soul. And if your soul is here, you heard the invitation into deeper alignment, deeper union, deeper truth. A deeper truth than your trauma, a deeper truth than sourcing your self-worth from caretaking or trying to get validation, looking after others. What is that something else? It's a mystery, and we're going to enter that mystery together. What is life beyond your conditioning? What is life beyond the conditioning of a world that is in so many ways bereft of soul, bereft of encouraging the soul, that is obsessed with identification, that is obsessed with machinery, creating robots, creating stress in the system? I implore your soul to go beyond systems, to go beyond conditioning, and to enter a new world where your soul gifts, where your love, where your being can give love, not from a place of overdrive, but from a place of overflow. So I'm going to pass on to Tara to share, and then I'll come back and share more about the keys in that.
If you're ready to transform your life and relationships from the inside out, while also gaining the skills to hold others through their own breakthroughs without the need for certification or showing up for live calls, explore our flexible, self-paced practitioner training. The link is provided in our show notes.
Thank you, darling. Wow. Oh, it's incredible after being exposed to this work for, I think it's been 9 years now, that every time I receive it, it just hits me in a new way. Truth tends to have a way of doing that. Oh, yeah, I really just feel to share. It's like, for me, I grew up with a very strong academic drive, and that came from a deep-rooted self-worth wound to do with my dad, who was very emotionally and physically absent, because ironically he was off trying to save the world from global warming. So he was in his service, but there was a need, a very deep need that wasn't met. And so I've sought that validation for love through every relationship, through work, through working really, really hard so I can get everything done, and through the perfectionist. And I left my mainstream job as a marine ecologist that I'd done for 17 years, got the honors, got the PhD, met Chantelle, met Sidel, her daughter, in my first tantric women's circle, and was like, why isn't this taught in schools? How were we not taught that actually when we listen to ourselves and we listen to our emotional bodies, that is the best guide of where we need to be and what's going to expand us and create a beautiful life, and what is definitely not in alignment with us and not working for us. And so there's a reason that there's such large emotional suppression across the planet, because guess what? When we feel, we speak up. When we really feel and we know ourselves, we take action towards what is alignment with our heart, with our soul. And that's been a long journey for me. And Tantra is the thing that has most profoundly connected me more and more and more to that state. And initially, when I left my job and then said to Chantelle, what can I do? How can we get this work out to the world? Then I thought, great, I'm free of all of my burnout. You know, I gave myself a heart condition that I needed an operation from for stress. I gave myself repetitive strain injury, RSI, where I couldn't use my hands for 3.5, almost 4 years. Finally resigned and thought, great, none of those problems will follow me because now I'm doing spiritual work. And they followed me. And so I, worked and overworked and would kind of go through this boom bust of being like, yes, I want to do everything and let's launch this and let's launch that. And just saying yes, 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 because I was inspired, really inspired, but then not listening to my body and my nervous system, not looking at the impact that was having on my relationship as well, and going, actually, it's okay to pause. It's okay to slow down. And the very thing that I thought I'd left behind just because I changed into a spiritual career path has followed me. And it's really, for me, being this journey of, I was so hyper masculine in the way that I did everything, actually. The way that I dressed, the way that I related in relationship, the way that I related in work. And my previous way of dealing with that was addiction. So alcoholism, addicted to painkillers for 17 years, pot, Netflix, all the things. And when I saw these patterns reoccurring, probably one of the deepest actually practices that first shifted that was checking out that inner union, which is one of the core foundations of Tantra, is this inner union state of masculine and feminine within. That as human beings, we're not taught that. So instead of showing up for ourselves from our own masculine, what did I do? I projected that on my partner, the poor bastard. And he had to hold masculine for my rather chaotic emotional body. But through the practices and through committing to a daily practice every day to go within, to hold myself, to listen to myself, then this safety that Chantelle was talking about, that I think all of us, for the majority of our life have not felt safe in our body, started to be felt, because there was a commitment to being with all the parts of myself that I hadn't previously held, that the addiction was just a nice band-aid over, and that work addiction was also covering up. And through that self-worth wound really started to shift, because I was listening to what I needed, and that scared the shit out of me. Because what I needed was to say no to launching new products or new offerings to the world through the academy. I had to say no to teaching as regularly sometimes. And I had to say no to the things that didn't feel good for me in business, in friendship, and in romantic relationship. But guess what? When I did that, I was prioritizing myself, right? I was listening to myself. I was loving myself and speaking up. And from that place, the the shifts that have happened have meant that now I am working in my joy. I no longer work to burn out. I have more drive and passion than I've had in the last 5 years, and it's coming from a healthy space. And there's this balance of the two, of the feminine and masculine, that now they're supporting each other, rather than the masculine being like, we will create safety through validation and through safety around finances, rather than coming from the place of this deep, deep soul yearning and longing to support other people in the way that Tantra has supported me. And so the two have been alongside each other. And it really took me to go into that past conditioning, to be with the shadows, to be with the addictions, to be with all the ways that I was distracting and avoiding myself, to just listening to the truth of my heart, listening to what was actually too much and overwhelming for me in work and that I couldn't do. And the solution was to find other people to do that. And there were beautiful people who took on that role. And by doing that and really, really feeling and clearing whatever has been your conditioning or has been your past challenging experiences, and coming home to your own heart and trusting that, then life shifts in beautiful, dramatic ways, because you're aligning to your soul's truth. You're aligning to your heart's truth. And what's possible there in terms of impact, in terms of your service in the world, in terms of how much energy and overflow you actually have to give others, is what I've experienced as a quantum shift. And I'll finish by saying that, just to be gentle and kind on yourself when working with this piece, because we live in a world that tells us the exact opposite. As Chantelle says, it talks about mortgages and earning money, and everything is external, external, external. Look at social media. It's like, to be on there, to share your service in the world, it's constantly this feedback loop of validation. And so what we're doing here is really shifting paradigms that says, no, this is not working for us. This is not working for humankind. This is certainly not working from the planet. So how about we try actually something that is connected to our hearts, connected to our souls, and see how that ripples out into the world. So yeah, so Chantelle, I'd love for you to share whatever's alive for you now. But yeah, speaking into this, also this place of validation and the impact of that from the external, and moving into this like soul drive, soul movement.
Yeah, the thing is that soul actually doesn't care about validation and approval. When you're sitting in soul, soul just wants to bring forth what's here. Soul doesn't give a fuck about how many likes you're getting. It's not thinking about the numbers that are going to come to workshops. It's just this living moment, in this moment, direct experience of like being like the sun. It's like, this is who I am, and I have to shine this. This is what I have to bring forth. But how it's not easy to rest in soul. And for me, yes, it's the shadow work, it's the dissolving of addictions, it's coming home, it's all of the amazing tantric practices that support a shedding of unhealthy habits. But for me, I didn't really have a lot of unhealthy habits. My journey was more about, can I bring more pleasure? Can I bring more ease? Can I bring more deep relaxation? I never used to stop. I've always ran my own businesses. Yeah, raising two kids. I've always been someone who's taken on a lot and like just go, 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 go and running on adrenaline. But that was my comfort zone. And so, you know, part of what I was saying before, when you're identified with the caretaker, when you're identified being in overdrive, don't let that just become your story. You've got to start to get uncomfortable. For me, discomfort is actually, can I rest? Can I be in the pleasure? Can I be in the ease and no longer be wired towards service all the time? Because when that's the predominant force, that's when it turns into savior and caretaker. Because actually you're not nourishing yourself. So there's a lot of talk in nervous system regulation about being in the relaxation, being in the parasympathetic. Now, I'm someone who has got very far in life in terms of all of it, like the 3D and the 5D and the inner work, by having a lot of energy. And not everyone, you know, my human design, my astrology, everything you can possibly imagine points to me being a very high energy person. And when I first started feeling into that I needed to rest and relax, I'm just like, I was doing it and like in that, and I needed to really polarize that for a while. But all of this energy was there. And then it's like, but I actually want to keep creating. And, you know, when I first was with my partner, my current partner, Matisse, who's a great teacher of flow and deep rest and presence, I bought a camper van. I just like stepped right back from the business. And Tara and I have both had our moments of, we just can't do it anymore. And then actually what she needed and the lessons she needed from my experience, she got. And then when she was at that point, I got that. So the union of our souls is beautiful. And you'll find that the people that you meet, the people that you draw into the soul community, when there's love in the center, you're actually getting exactly what you need, even when it may not be what you want. So anyway, I really polarized into the rest, the relaxation, the stepping back, and then we were launching practitioner training. This was like 3 or 4 years ago, and just there was something missing from it. And I said to Matisse, like, you know, there's something not right here. And he said, I feel like you need to step back in, and people need to feel you more, and you go back in. And I was so angry at him for saying that. And I went and did my process, and because there was this fear that if I stepped back into the business, it was going to look like how it used to look, which was me never stopping. There was always an attunement to the business. There was always an attunement to others. And, you know, Tara had that same fear coming up as well when she stepped back into the business after taking a bit of a hiatus. And it's, I think, a fear that lives in all of us when we associate energy, activation, creation, action with burnout. And the key for me and the key for you and the key for humanity is when you rest, rest. When you take action and create, do it with fucking all of you. But can you do it with all of you when there's not self-nourishment? Fuck no. Can you deeply rest when you're not living your dharma? I don't think so. I got to a point, and it has got to points at different times, where actually when I'm just in the feminine, in the more parasympathetic, passive surrender to life and to love, there is something inside of me, a fire inside of me that is fucking unstoppable. Because everything I've lived is my dharma. Everything that is missing at any point in my life is my dharma. And what I've come to realize is imbued in my practitioner training, which is that activation is absolutely fucking essential. You know, I teach my practitioners that, you know, we start with an invocation, with an intention to be with spirit no matter what. And that is That is the force that is most meaningful. That's the energy we want in every session. And then there's a conversation. Just like with myself, I have to tune in. I have to check it out. You know, it wasn't easy to stop caretaking. It wasn't easy to stop doing. And it's not going to be easy to get out of your comfort zone, right? And do whatever it is that you haven't been able to do. That's why you don't fucking do it. But whenever I would meditate and just go, right, I'm not going to pick up my phone and write down ideas. I'm not going to help this person or that person. I'm not going to check anything. I'm just going to be with me. I started to get to know myself in a whole new way. And you will too, where so many of my thoughts, it's like, is Tara okay? Are the kids okay? What's happening for Matisse? How's my dad? All these. And I'm like, wow, I just think about other people all the fucking time. And then coming back to the breath and choosing, can I switch my attunement to others? And the other thing that would happen is this idea, that idea, and poor Tara, part of my like just conditioning that's aligned with caretaking and service meant I was constantly like coming up with ideas. We've got 20 online courses, and she was this beautiful devotional mother energy for me, walking alongside me and supporting me to create my vision in the world, until it got to the point where she couldn't anymore and I couldn't anymore. But in that space, I didn't realize how imbalanced it was. So sitting with myself, attuning, switching that attunement from service and others into here was like, oh, wow, okay, what do I want? What am I really feeling? And that's the getting to know you. That's when you really get to know yourself. When you stop identifying with whatever conditioning you've had that's taken you out of a body that was unsafe to be in. And you come home and you enter this body. And the most profound choice I ever made that transcended my conditioning and changed everything for me was when I'm resting, when I'm in the receptivity, when I'm in a space of following my pleasure, following my joy, emptying out. Can I know, because soul and truth and making impact is most important for me, can I know that actually that is what then is creating the activation part of the session that is actually the activation of life and going into healthy sympathetic, going into healthy adrenaline. And so what that looks like in a session is releasing and allowing the full expression of the soul through this human experience, where it's present moment experience. It doesn't have a story of trauma. It doesn't have a fucking story of anything other than I will no longer be constricted by saying yes to things I'm no longer a yes to. I will no longer be constricted by my conditioning that tells me I always have to do. I will no longer be constricted by whatever it is for you, tying my self-worth to validation, caretaking others, unpacking all of that. And so now what's happening for Tara and I, and what's been happening in the business, is that the deep rest is then overflowing into huge impact, and we're doing so much less and we're earning more money than we've ever earned. And why is that? Because money is also the energy of love. We've learned that money loves us and that we love money, and we're okay with that, and it's part of the flow. What it also means is that our relationships are no longer set in our wounding. You know, her struggle with relationship has always been tying her self-worth to the other person and how they're responding to her. Mine was always, am I adequately holding this person and supporting them? And it seems obvious now, but once we both let go of that, then something new could birth, which is a much more authentic, healthy overflow of love. So if everyone can close their eyes for another moment, I want you to feel into when you're resting, when you're not working, when you're not creating, when you're not in the doing, are you really resting? Are you sourcing from the womb and asking yourself, where's my pleasure right now? You know, since I've been really connecting with my womb, connecting with my body, feeling into what really creates ease and joy. It's going to the ocean. It's slowly sipping tea and meditating on my breath and not allowing the thoughts of worry about others to overtake me. It's going into beautiful shops with luxury items. It's not judging anything that brings me pleasure. It's making love. It's being in deep presence with my partner. It's being with my children, going on holidays with my children. I've never been on a fucking holiday that didn't include a retreat until last year. What is it for you that really takes you into the deep rest? Meditating. I love meditating. I love emptying out. I love putting headphones on and listening to music and allowing the music to move through my body and into my cells. And still, sometimes I'm pulled out of it with an idea, with a post, and I'm like, no, this is for me. Because it's so easy to be seduced by conditioning. It's so easy to be seduced by whatever you've identified with as a source of validation and approval and celebration that started at a very young age. Don't let your soul be seduced. Let the activation in your life be sourced from service and your soul's gifts, not your trauma, not your wounds. And how do you do that? By mining the heart, by becoming conscious of what takes you away from your body, by deeply resting when you're resting, and then allowing the creative fire of your soul to overflow, not from a place of trying or seeking or getting something, but just the burning heart of, this is who I am. And I'm ready to share that into the world. So we start with that deep mining of the heart, of the soul, with that place of staying with ourselves, being with ourselves, even when so much wants to take us away. And then your uniqueness depends on how deeply can you rest in your soul? How deeply can you hold yourself through whatever is happening, so that holding isn't even there anymore? There's just a deep aliveness of this present moment that is fucking openness itself, that is here saying yes to whatever is alive in you and no longer distracting from that. That's the activation that is worth something, the activation that comes from that, the action that comes from the deep beingness, the deep listening. What would it be like to no longer be in stress when you're in activation? And when your sympathetic nervous system, your doing kicks in. So opening the eyes, I want to say here that I still get stressed sometimes. You know, I don't want you to think there's never going to be stress. Yesterday, I got a message about the practitioner training that definitely put me into a bit of stress. But the difference is now that I don't follow that stress. I don't go into, I've got to fix this. What am I going to do about this? This hypervigilance, it's all about noticing. It's all about getting to know yourself so well and loving yourself so deeply that the minute urgency and stress are kicking in, it's like, and it took me a few hours to come back. But usually it would just be ongoing and I wouldn't even know about it. And then I'm just operating from stress. So life is never about the obliteration of anything. It's about the noticing of everything and being in the allowance of that. And so when there's activation, you know, the next stage of the session structure is integration. And then how do you integrate that experience? I had some time with my son, removed myself from that, had beautiful conversations with him that were just ridiculously amazing. I happened to have dinner with my mum that night and was nourished with her beautiful food. when judgment would come in, I'm just like, just go into just be here now, loving her and receiving her love in the way she can give it. And she ended up giving me all of this stuff. And, you know, the drive home with Caleb was beautiful. So it's like when there's activation that is stressful, you need to then choose what is nourishing, not follow the stress. Even when you activate in a way that's not stressful, because I am high energy, I can just keep rolling it out. I have a huge capacity, right? So I might be working and then just like, and like 6 hours later, I'm writing a book at the moment, my first fiction book. And part of my fear of it is every manual I've ever written, and there's a lot of fucking manuals, I've written hundreds of thousands of pages in my life. And, you know, they wake me up at 5 a.m. I'm writing. I'm like, if I start doing this, what if I go into that again? I haven't at all. I started it a few months ago. It's in my ears. The poetry's coming through me. It's writing itself. And it's because I'm noticing as soon as I'm feeling constricted, as soon as my body is starting to feel like it needs nourishment, I can feel that. And I listen. So let's all make a choice right now, dropping into the body, closing down the eyes. And feeling this intention in your heart, first of all, just being grateful to yourself and grateful for this space. Thank you, each of you, for showing up. Thank yourself for showing up. You're obviously on a deep journey of soul reclamation if you're here. Feeling that gratitude. And now feeling an intention to get really intimate with love. With the love that you are, with the burning away of anything that isn't that, your identity and your conditioning. A love that is equally given to yourself as with others. A love that is the flame of soul movement and spirit that we're bringing here, where there's no longer a war with yourself. There's no longer a bypassing of your body, where you're deeply in the holding, where you're deeply in the loving, where you're deeply in the listening, and action is coming from that place. That we may be soul activists, love activists. We all want love, the feeling of love, the most beautiful feeling ever, from however it comes, from receiving life, from receiving from a human, from being in nature. We all seek that, and yet we push it away with all of the patterns, with all of the disconnection. So let's say yes to love. Just open the body and say yes. Any questions you have about anything that's been aroused in you over this time, please ask.
So we have one question from Ali, which is, how do I stay present with my own energy and not self-abandon?
I mean, it's different for everyone in terms of what your patterns are when you self-abandon, but it comes down to not following the impulse anymore. It's like, so we all have a different impulse in terms of how we abandon ourselves, whether it's drugs, caretaking, seeking validation from a partner, from the world. It's like, the key is in the noticing. The key is in the noticing. It's like, okay, I'm going into that again. And then it's like the pause and the breathing and the connecting with yourself. How can I be with what's here? How can I be with what's arising in me without creating separation from my body, without creating separation from my heart, without creating separation from my womb? How can I be here fully now? And what that requires is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And as I said, it's like I felt so uncomfortable in the deep rest. I felt so uncomfortable in the attunement process. I don't anymore, but initially it was hard to just tune into what I wanted, what I was desiring, what would bring me pleasure. I felt selfish. It was very anathema to my conditioning. And also, like, what are you doing, you lazy bitch? Like, you know, there was never a time when I was in rest or doing nothing that my mum wouldn't say to me, what are you doing? Or if, you know, I wanted to sleep during the day, like harassed about that. So, whatever you've been harassed for, whatever you've been conditioned towards, it's getting to know yourself, noticing the voice in your head and finding something deeper than that voice and sitting in the discomfort of trying something new, which is to stay present with yourself. It's hard at first, really, really hard. And then once you get that and you can just be attuned to yourself and be here now and trust the directionality of what your womb is telling you need, what your heart is telling you need. You're like, how did I ever live in the other way? And it gets easy, but yeah, the road that you're not accustomed to traveling is always going to be the more difficult road, even if it's the road that you need. And we're here for you on that journey that's so beautiful, but also difficult.
And my biggest fear in doing what Raven's been sharing and slowing down and resting when I can feel that my body needs to rest, and stopping work when I can feel my body needs to stop work. My biggest fear was like, well, I won't be productive. I'll be letting everyone else down, and the academy will crumble. And ironically, it was through not listening to that that I was the most unproductive I'd ever been, because my stress was so high. My brain wasn't functioning like it does when it's coming from overflow. And it wasn't serving me, but it wasn't serving the academy. That was the big shock to myself. It's like, oh, I'm here to show up for people, but I'm not, because I'm in such a high stress state. And actually, by really stepping back, and sometimes the pendulum needs to swing. You know, if we're not used to resting, then for a period it can swing. But then finding that middle zone now, I'm more productive than I've been in my 47 years in this body, because I'm doing the tasks that really matter the way that it's the most efficient for them to be done, because I have clarity of mind, because I'm not caught up in the fear and the stress and the anxiousness and the validation and the comparison. I can just feel in my body, this is the right way to go. I'm going to trust that. And every time I trust that, things get done quicker than ever before, with more joy within the team than ever before, and have an even bigger impact. So and the more that you trust yourself and take that step into the uncomfortable, it was really uncomfortable for me to work that way initially. You start to see the evidence of it in your life and go, oh, the work works. It's not just spiritual ideology. The work works. And your practice and your experience is the best trust builder that you have, is yourself and your own experience.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. Like, next time, you know, if you are a thought leader, if you are in this work, which I know a lot of you are, it's that before you do anything, tune in and just go, can I take action right now from my joy, from overflow? And if you can't, go and self-nourish, because it's meant to feel good. And that's not what we're conditioned to believe. It's like we're conditioned that it's meant to feel stressful, and that when we're in the doing and when we're in the working, it's like, and then we get to relax. No, you get to feel good. I feel good 99% of the time that I'm bringing service to the world. And a big part of that is also be in your gifts. It's like, you know, when Tara said that we've hired other people, that's made such a huge difference for her, because she was no longer in her joy and ease with some of the roles that she took on when we first joined forces. Right? She got to the point where it was just not natural for her anymore. So be in your naturalness, right? Connect with tribe. Have other people doing things that aren't necessarily in your joy. Like one of the many reasons why Tara and I work so well together is that she finds great joy in creating structures and in sorting shit out and like seeing a big picture. And I can't even deal with that at all. She tried. I said, look, I'll take care of the self-paced launch. You just keep relaxing. And like within a week, she's completely took over because I'm just bad at it. Not my forte, right? And then that was a big step for her to take that on and to choose to do it with joy. And she's done it amazingly and without stress. So it's like really being attuned to your no. What feels constricting? You know, I got a big milestone for me was I was asked to speak on TEDx, which has always been a dream of mine to have a bigger impact to more mainstream. And initially I said yes, and I got training for it. And then, you know, I was in my morning meditation. And as Tara said, the daily practice of attuning to yourself is really important. And I could feel this constriction in my body. And there was something that didn't feel free. And I'm like, what is that? And it was TEDx. It's like, I don't want to fucking speak about something so deep and only have 18 minutes to talk about it. And I feel irresponsible to support people in breaking the silence when actually there's so many deeper threads to it. So then I said to Tara, can we create an online course that people can then flow into from TEDx, even though we weren't supposed to be launching anything? And both our service beings were like, yes, yes, yes. And then, you know, a few days later, I still felt that constriction, and saying no to TEDx was a big thing for me. And it's like actually trusting that. And after I said no to that, something else really opened. And this is what I find when I say no, and when Tara says no, and when we say no collectively to what's not in resonance with a beautiful regulated nervous system that is taking excited action based on a restful, deeply attuned space, when that's not possible, we're both a no to that now. And in the deep trusting of that, the results that we had to stop focusing on have been fucking insane. So that's our wish for all of you, and part of why we're here today.
So we have two more questions. So the first one is, how do you practice letting go of the caretaker identity when you're a mum of two young kids, when so much of your role is meeting needs all day? And Helen's saying that she finds it hard to even know what her own needs are, let alone prioritize them.
Yeah, so actually, children don't need our caretaking. They need our deep trust that their soul can evolve in what it needs to evolve into. And of course, we need to care for them. We need to make sure that we're guiding them and holding them and supporting them emotionally, physically, taking care of their needs. But a lot of the time, what is taking away from our own self-nourishment and attunement, which only takes a few seconds to or a few minutes to breathe in and feel what we're needing. A lot of the time, what's taking us out of that isn't that we need to care for our children. It's the stress that we have in that. It's the micromanaging. It's the overdose of masculine energy that's like, they can't feel upset. And whenever they do, I'm getting stressed about that. And I know that one really well. Or like, I need to make sure of this, this, and that. What if you could just chill and relax? And yes, take care of what they need. And there's always a harder time in that, especially when they're little. And then also take the time I need to tune in to being my pleasure. I found that a lot of my needs actually was so in alignment with my kids, of like, I need to be in nature. Okay, I'm going to take them out in nature. I need to put some music on and dance and growl. And then I would do it with the kids, right? So there's actually, the more present you get and attuned you get to your deeper needs, the more you're going to meet their needs, because that attunement leads to an innocence, leads to pleasure and ease. And that's what kids need. So instead of being all up in your head and micromanaging and coming from control and caretaking, you're deeply relaxing into your own being and the innocence of your soul that needs pleasure, ease, joy, adventure, and inviting your kids into that. And then when it's time that you need some time alone, they're in overflow. They're going to be much more deeply able to just rest and engage in their own imaginative play and be with themselves. And, you know, one thing I always challenge with mums, and my first business was all around supporting mums, harmonious mother, harmonious baby, for 5 years when I first had Sadell. One of the things I would always say is, you find time, you're always going to find time to eat, to have a shower, to do the things that are important to you, right? Whether that's talking to your friends, going for a coffee, watching your favorite show, whatever it is. As soon as you prioritize attunement to self, really prioritize that and prioritize your well-being and feel that and rewire your nervous system so that attunement becomes a lot more natural, self-attunement, as well as attuning to them, you're going to do it. So prioritize that. Prioritize the inner work, prioritize that attunement and self-nourishment, and know that that's the best gift that you can give your children, because children learn through imitation and children feel co-regulate. So when you're regulated, your children will be more regulated. And the only way you can regulate is by having a flexible nervous system that can be in the rest and ease and digest and integration, as well as the sympathetic cooking dinner, taking care of shit, working when you need to work from that place of overflow. Yeah.
Amazing. And one last question, which is a great one to wrap up on, is how do you shift out of being an overgiver from trauma patterning to being a caregiver out of service?
It's kind of twofold. It's first of all being so in touch with your soul and your soul's gifts that you know that that's the most important thing. That's more important than saving someone. That's more important than getting validation in whatever way, that you start to prioritize whatever your unique soul is here to bring to the world as an expression in and of itself. That's not tied to your audience, that's not tied to how people are responding. Actually trusting that all the right people will come to you and everything will be in resonance when you're radiating from that soul space, right? So if you're tied in with what people need and what you're going to do, and this has helped me so much in my parenting, when I'm focused on, is what I'm doing okay with the kids? Right. Or, with clients, I mean, I've always tended to be pretty good with that. But, if I am in that social media seduction of, how can I write the best post to get however many likes, or how can I speak to this offering so that people listen? It doesn't work. It's like all you ever need to do is be yourself, because you incarnated into this human experience with a unique soul imprint and gift. So that's what you need to stay in touch with, so that you're not caregiving. It's all about just transmission. And then the rest is done. If you're doing the work to embody love, you're also doing the work to embody your soul's truth. And you're here in the expression, and you're trusting that whatever souls are meant to be drawn to you, whatever souls are meant to be impacted from you, they'll be magnetized, right? I think I may have only answered one part of the question, Tara. Was there another part that I haven't addressed?
No, I think that beautifully answered it. Yeah. Wow, thank you,
You've got
everyone.
to trust your unique soul gifts, everyone. Your unique soul expression. It's not about what you're taking out being popular, right? And in saying all of that, I've always been very connected to soul in terms of my service. I've always filled up in terms of clients, in terms of retreats. On maybe the few occasions that I haven't in the last decade, that's been perfect because there's been a more intimate gift. You can trust it. And trust me, I trigger the fuck out of a lot of people. And my opinion's not always popular. And what I'm holding is not always popular. The fact that I don't give a fuck and that I trust my soul expression means that whatever percentage of the billions of people that are in the world, whatever percentage of the population needs my medicine is going to come to me. And I don't care if that's one person, I don't care if that's 1,000 people. I trust the invitation of my soul expression to bring toward me whoever's meant to come to me. And you can all trust that. Don't try and be someone else. Don't try and be me. Don't try and be Tara. Don't try to be anything other than you. And know that whatever has been missing in your life, that has stopped you from feeling whole and complete, that thing that was missing. Once you find that, if you haven't already, that is your Dharma. Whatever brings you to wholeness, whatever brings you into remembering love, that's your Dharma. Not looking at what posts are performing well and trying to emulate someone else or emulate your mentor or do the right thing. Fuck obligation, fuck the shoulds, fuck the strategies. Some strategies work, none of them work if you're not energetically aligned. Everything will flow naturally from a space of soul and determination meeting attunement. Yeah? When it's not a big effort, you're not trying, you're not stressing. You're here, you're discovering who you are, and you're allowing that to be felt and seen in the world.
Amen. And if there's any way we can support you, it would be our greatest joy to do so. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for listening to the Love, Sex and Freedom podcast. For more great free resources, in-person and online workshops, and our retreats, find us on Instagram and Facebook at Embodied Awakening Academy or visit embodiedawakeningacademy.com.